Okay, welcome on our lecture for the Theosophical Society TSPL Point Loma, and for the subtitle of Working Together, the Magical Effect of it. Okay, let's make a start. I think this is the last lecture in a series, well, from starting January till now, 5 series, 20 lectures about the whole activity of the Blavatsky 80 million years ago, starting up the human thinking by the Lords of Compassion and Wisdom, and 150 years activity that Blavatsky was starting in 1875 with starting up the Theosophical Society in New York. And this is the last one. And this evening we will speak about a number of, let's say, quite sensitive things. Yeah. This evening I speak about the Theosophical Society Point Loma, TSPL. So I will focus on the branch you are now listening to, and the one where the branch where I am very active for. Yeah. So what you can ask yourself, special in this light, yeah, what is the ideal theosophical organization? Yeah. And that is one of the things I will address. Then I will speak about 1896, where Theosophical Society Point Loma started. Yeah. And the last subject is then the magical power of working in groups. What is very high maintained in our organization. One of the main things is to realize that the ideal theosophical organization is just an instrument in the hands of the Lords of Wisdom and Compassion. So it is not something on itself, but it is an instrument. And that is putting us a number of special requirements to have a certain atmosphere, a certain way of working, that we try to fulfill this instrument to give the masters the most, let's say, ideal instrument we can create on this moment. Of course, if you look in every organization, you will see that there are different type of members. I have here 3 groups: the esoteric or the esoteric one, the outer side, people that have interest, what follow our lectures, and so on. Then, of course, I have the next one, that is what is called the esoteric group members, that are the people what more study the teachings, the hard teachings, the power behind, starts to realize what the meaning is of that power behind and how far they will be involved in it. And then, of course, you have the occultists, let's say a very special group, very small group of devoted members, because they have come to the conclusion that you have to live according to the teachings. And that is quite a requirement that is not very likely to take it. So Theosophical movement, you find it on different places in our literature, is not the organization, but the movement in our literature, and special William Conduit's reference to this term, is in fact what we know under the name the Lords of Wisdom and Compassion. It is that organization of compassion and wisdom what is in rolling out over the 80 million years, yeah, to help humanity to try to give them wisdom, insight, understanding how processes in nature goes and run, but also, and that is the start the 18 million years ago, by helping to activate the thinking ability. And that was a very important something, because before the 18 million years ago, we were human beings between brackets, because the thinking activity was not really working. And it was by that Lords of Wisdom and Compassion what activate that quality. Yeah. So, and they started 18 million years ago, and to all that years up to today, they have somehow been a source of inspiration for humanity. Yeah. To inject ideas of wisdom, to try to stimulate the insight. Yeah. Create that insight as a part of the thinking climate of people, so that we are really able to solve problems in our daily life much better than what we do up to now. So what you can see, and a society formed for the Theosophical work is a visible organization. So if you look in that history of since 1875, and you start to dig in it, you find not only one Theosophical organization, but you find quite a number of them. Yeah, branching off, splittings, and so on and so on. So what we have to realize that an organization is just an outer organization. Yeah, and a much more important thing, of course, is what William Conjutz is saying here: the unity, yeah, of the Theosophical movement do not depend up the singleness of organization, but up a similarity of work and aspiration. And with this, we keep the link unbroken. Link unbroken is a very famous quotation from Blavatsky. Almost to the end of her life, she was saying, keep the link unbroken. I will explain that later on very much. But so what William Conjutz is saying, for the Theosophical movement, it should be important that all the different Theosophical organizations at least try to work in the similarity of work and aspiration. Yeah. Also realize that we have to serve humanity in thinking qualities and help them solve problems in daily life. So from this point of view, there is a huge difference between the movement and the society. Yeah. So that is what you have to keep in mind. Yeah. Sometimes if you look in history, you can see things about societies that you can put question marks behind, etc., etc. But we have to realize we like to be an instrument for the Theosophical movement. And that is the quotation what we used here. Organizations are means, not a goal. Yeah. And means that has also the meaning that organizations can be changed over time, adapting to, let's say, modern things in the society, new ideas in the society, but still try to maintain the principles, of course. So if you start to look what was happening with the societies in this light, then I think we have to focus on the period what starts in 1891. 1891 is the famous year that Blavatsky was passing away. So what I like to do is what happened since 1891 till now. And that is the statement Blavatsky was bringing, yeah, making, keep the link unbroken, yeah. And how do we do this? Yeah. Well, what was the idea behind that? Blavatsky represents the Theosophical movement, the Lords of Wisdom and Compassion in our Western world, in the West, here in Europe, United States, India, and so on. She was you can call it the intermediate person for it. Yeah. And she was the link, was used by the masters to work through Blavatsky and Chelas, bringing out all the information what we have received now. So to keep that link, that means that we have to live and work according to the principles, not of the society, but according to the principle of the Theosophical movement, according to the principles of the Lords of Wisdom and Compassion. And to do this is that we have to control our thinking. Yeah, the thinking process is a typical human process, the way we do this. And later on, I will explain why thinking is so important in that. So if we ask ourselves, what preparations did Helena Blavatsky make before her passing away? And she did. She did quite two, let's say, important things. She started an esoteric school and she started an inner group. Esoteric school was an organization in principle free from the Theosophical Society, but members of the esoteric school has to be also a member of the Theosophical Society, otherwise it was not possible to become a member of the esoteric school. And the inner group, let's say a step higher, intenser, there you have to be a member of the Theosophical Society, you have to be a member of the esoteric school, then there was an opportunity that you get an invitation to become a member of the inner group. Yeah. And why was Blavatsky doing this? If you look in the whole history from 1875 till, let's say, almost 1890, yeah, you will see that there was always in the society a lot of discussions, turmoil, and so on. And in previous lectures, I have explained that the Theosophical Society was more or less acting as a pressure cooker. Pressure cooker in the meaning that if you start to study Theosophy, you like to apply it in your daily life, then it calls up, it activates all your good sides, but it activates also your negative sides, your karma, what you have to work out. And by studying Theosophy, especially if you try to live it, especially if you are a member of the esoteric school, and even more special if you are a member of the inner group, that acceleration of breaking out all the qualities, also the good ones, yeah, is really giving a lot of effect in the society, in the Theosophical Society, but also between members and so on. But the idea for Blavatsky behind this was she wants to have a backbone, a group of people, what will keep up the principles and the way of working, even if there starts to become quite some turmoil, quite some amount of difficulties in the society when she is passing away. And we will see later on how far that was working and how far that was fulfilling that particular requirement. Yeah. So that backbone idea was really very important. Yeah. So what is the situation after Blavatsky has gone home? That was the way she called herself. By if I'm passing away, she called it when I go home. So that means she was going not dying in the full meaning of the word, but really going to another sphere, another level of consciousness to take up the activities over there. What also plays a very important thing in that everything what started to, let's say, stir up after 1891 was the fact that already from, let's say, 1880 or something like that, there was always in the society by the members, and not special the ES members of the inner group members, but by all the members, quite a big group what wants to have more occult phenomena. That was what I like very much and so forth. Yeah. And that interest was always, let's say, an underlying something, an underlying current And for a lot of people was it always searching on how can we have more occult information, how can we do this ourselves, and so on. And that plays a quite big role. The passing of Blavatsky was the direct intermediate contact with the Lords of Wisdom and Compassion was gone. And as we need to rely solely on ourselves. So that was the effect, that was the feeling what starts to exist in the society. Yeah. So Blavatsky is away. We don't have that straight contact with the wisdom, the Lords of Wisdom and Compassion anymore. What now? Yeah. But actually, it was not the case. The Lord was always there and is still there. Yeah. So we have to maintain that relation with the Lords of Wisdom and Compassion. That is the challenge we have to deal with. Yeah. And that is not by stimulating the feeling, oh my God, now we have to do it ourselves. But it is, in fact, go on with the way of living, spreading Theosophy, maintaining the principles, living according to the principles. So if you see after 1891, that marks really the start of a very difficult period. We can find in the Mahatma letters on different places, and we have read it by Blavatsky as well. She say, and the masters have told that already several times, contact with them, with the masters, yeah, become increasingly difficult near the end of 19th century. Yeah, and that has to do with a number of cycles, what was running. You can find more information about that. And the masters speak also about the cycles, and Blavatsky speak about the cycles. That by starting that newer cycles, that contact will be more severe, will be dus more difficult to do. Yeah. So that whole discussion started after 1891, and that dispute goes on and goes on, and in 1896 it leads to a split in the Theosophical Society. Yeah, and that splits in two societies: Theosophical Society ADR, you can say the original society, and there was a split off. The Theosophical Society, first called America, later on called Theosophical Society New York, later on was becoming Theosophical Society Point Loma, TSPL. So that is the line what happens, yeah? If we look to that famous expression of Blavatsky, and we ask ourselves, how do we keep that link unbroken? There are a number of requirements, and I just gave a few here. Yeah, we have to be a good receiver of the ideas of the Lords of Wisdom and Compassion. Yeah, we have to maintain the original principles alive, and alive is really important. That is not we should have a book or we should have and so on. No, alive means we live them. Yeah. And you can then ask, what do we need for that, yeah, to keep them alive? And here comes for me quite an important thing. Literature that contains and explains the original principles, but that on itself is not enough. Yeah? The constant living of these original principles is also a basic requirement. Imagine yourself if the original books and publications will be available, but there is nobody who is reading it and is able to explain it, what will be the use of that literature? Yeah. So there is really an important thing. So, and here I come up with the statement, the less our thinking is polluted, the better we maintain the link. And polluted means that if we deviate, step away from that basic principles you find by the Masters and Blavatsky in all the publications he has done. Yeah, and polluted up means mainly stepping away from compassion, be very selfish, me first, and all the types idea. That means that we step away from the keeping the link, and the link can only be maintained if we are thinking and living still according to that principles. Then you can ask yourself how to be a good receiver and transmitter. By the process of living those ideas, we become a better receiver. And in turn, we become also a better transmitter of these ideas. That is one of the things we have to keep in mind. Receiving and transmitting occur simultaneously. That means that if we pick up an idea and we start to think about it, in the same time, we also transmit this idea, what can then be received by our fellow men, family, friends, etc., etc. And that is one of the basic consequences, that if we are not having an unpolluted mind, yeah, and we start to think and react on it and start to interpret it, the Theosophical teaching, the way we understand, and we will start to promote our understanding as the principle, we also transmit this idea to all other people, and that will, let's say, spoil the opportunity to have a good link. Yeah. So keep your thinking pure. Yeah. Do not pollute. Yeah. If you look, then you will see, for instance, in the pledge of the ES, that is a very good guideline. I will show later on a number of, let's say, lines out of the pledge, but also the very popular or well-known paramitas, a number of rules, the 17 or 12, it depends on what level you want to start to study and to interfere with it, apply them. Then you will see that they give you all hints to keep the thinking pure. Yeah. One of the things you can find in the Mahatma letters is that the masters speak about the motive. Yeah. And the motive is, in fact, a test for ourselves. Where do we stand? Yeah. What is the reason we do the things as we do? Yeah. And the master gives a very good hint and say, okay, a good motive in itself is like water vapor. It must be bind. The idea is, if you look to a water vapor, that is for us almost invisible, till it starts to bind itself. Condensation, what we call it quite often, and so on. So that means that good motives, if we don't do something with them, if we don't apply them in certain fields, then it is a very great abstraction and is not doing much. Yeah? The value of good motives is best seen when they are taken to form of an action. So we have to do something from that point of view. Yeah? All actions and thoughts have a consequence, a result, including the more or less unconscious actions and thoughts. And that is one of the reasons that you can find quite often in our literature, guard your thinking. Yeah? Our quality is determined by the sum of our actions. So, yeah, what we are in totally makes what we radiate and what we can be, how you say, responsible for. Yeah, and that is the reason that I say on the last one, beware of mental self-poisoning. Yeah, that's an important thing, that is stepping away from the idea of compassion. Or start to say it to yourself, no, it is too difficult for me, I'm not able to do that, and so on, and so on. And there is absolutely no need for it. Yeah. The master say to Synod, that is the person what in the period 1882 and so on, was a lot of exchange on with letters. Yeah. there he said to Siddharth, you have to remember that you are at a hard school. A hard school. Because why? You have to learn the teachings by yourself. So what they can say, they can provide some information, but you have to really to make them yourself. Yeah. So learning the teachings is becoming them. Yeah. Execute them, living according to it. Yeah. The masters provide the information for it, but we have to learn it and we have to pass it on. That is a very important thing. Yeah. And by doing this, we becoming it. Yeah? So that means that just study and saying, oh, that is a nice text. Yeah, I understand that very well, is not enough. Yeah. So we have to study the text, we have to study principles, and we have to check them in daily life and apply them. Yeah. So that we really exercise the principles by ourselves. Yeah. So, and our predecessors had to learn everything to them as well. That is also what the master is saying. All, let's say, higher beings, yeah, higher than the masters and so on, have to go through the same process. That was the reason that he said to Synod, please keep in mind that you are sitting on a hard school, because you cannot say, okay, yeah, I have read it, I understand it, and so on. No, you have to apply it, become it, and the masters offer a foundation for you. That means the information, explaining it, and so on. And Blavatsky was passing that on her turn. Yeah. So if you see what Blavatsky was doing this, yeah, then you can say, okay, she was sowing seeds of the thoughts, life of future generations. So that is not only for that period she was active in, but also periods after 1891. That information was in fact a seed, a plant what has to grow and what has to work out and itself. Yeah. In my previous lectures in this series of 4, I spoke about the ideations, the senders, the masters, the lords of wisdom and compassion. We receive this as ideas, and we have to concentrate on the ideas to work them out as much as possible, to understand them as much as possible. And one way of understanding is also applying them and see what the practical feedback will be if we apply them and so on. That will give us the proof if we have understood it or maybe not too much and we have to work and to polish further on. Yeah. So there is a very important thing here. Is there a continuity of the original teachings as given by Blavatsky and the masters? So that is a very important question, and it is still a question what is valid nowadays. Later on, I will come back on this in more detail, but that is something what you have to keep in mind, and that is really playing a very big role in the following part. Yeah, when we say split as renovation, and that is a huge discussion, yeah, in the period after 1891 till 1896, there is a huge discussion, what can we do? And what is the reason we can work together and so on, yeah? So what you can expect is that in this period, especially the group what is called the esoteric school people and the inner group people, that they step up and come forward to help to keep the original teachings alive and help also the organization going on in the original directions and maintain the original principles. To give you a little bit of an idea, is here are 4 of the elements of the pledge to give you an idea that especially the esoteric school people and the inner group people certainly, what they have to take as a pledge and to respect. That is the pledge itself to endeavor to make Theosophy a living power in my life. Yeah, there's an other line as you have to live it. Yeah, pledge myself to support before the world the Theosophical movement, not the organization, the movement, its leaders and its members, and in particular to obey without every and so on or delay the orders of the head of the esoteric section in all that concerned my relation with the Theosophical movement. And number three, especially in that turmoil time, I pledge myself never to listen without protest to any evil thing spoken of a brother theosophist and to abstain from condemning others. And then I pledge myself to maintain a constant struggle against my lower nature and to be charitable to the weakness of others. So that are just 4 of 7. Yeah. So if you take this in mind, and you can expect that people in the ES and in the Indo group takes it up, I think then you should easily draw the conclusion that the turmoil in the 91-96 period should be much less than we have seen. 96, on the end of the turmoil, there is the birth of the Theosophical Society Point Loma, as it is called now, led by William Quan Dutz. So, and here you see that in 1896, the choice was made better to split, and we are able to maintain a certain characteristic than don't split, and probably we lost that particular characteristic. So that is a very important thing. What is rolling out in 1896 is a lot of things, because that really needs time and so on. And on the end, the society, after a couple of different names, is able to establish what is called nowadays Lomaland, southwest of San Diego, by Catherine Tingley. Catherine Tingley was the successor of William Quan Dutz, yeah, and was in that time the headquarters of TSPL and the Raja Yoga School. Catherine Tingley starts with a couple of other people to build really out of nothing on that southwest of San Diego, yeah, a piece of land with nothing, starts to build a school, what developed itself later on, that there were living something like 500 people, a self-supporting community, having his own doctors and dentists and so on and so on and so on. So quite often you can find in California that Lomaland, that community is quite often seen as the first big community in California. Yeah, but Catherine Tingley did that, of course, with a purpose. Yeah, not so from having a nice center, but she did it with a purpose to start to build up a center, a nucleus, what will transmit and spread out Theosophical original principles. And to do this, and I think if you think back on the things I have just said about you have to live it and so on, she starts also to raise children from 3-4 years and sometimes even younger, to raise them in a certain atmosphere, not in the atmosphere what was very common in the days, but in an atmosphere what was really focused on developing the spiritual, the moral and the ethical side of beings. And that is what is called the Raja Yoga School of the Point Loma Society. And that means Raja means the royal, and yoga means the unity. Yeah. So the schools what really try to develop that type of characteristic in the children. And if you look in the way how she was doing that with teachers and so on, from the way of working and how to educate children, then you just see that quite often, on a number of occasions, that same principle was also taken up with Montessori and other people to try to build up a more or less similar school. Yeah, she was very successful in that, and her successor was Dr. de Peruker. When he was taking over from Catherine Tillingley in 1929, he was, of course, having that complete community available, but also a group of well-trained people, by that time 20 to 30, what was excellent co-workers to give him the opportunity to publish a number of theosophical books and studies, etc., for further explaining of the secret doctrine. It will also show that there was really a responsibility we have for the future of Theosophy. So that means that that whole line was not something very nice and very good to have in school, but it was also taking up the responsibility to keep the Theosophy alive and available for everybody. Yeah, we cannot destroy the source for sure, but it is our responsibility whether this knowledge remain pure and is accessible to humanity. And that is a very important thing. There is a lot of discussion, of course, from if later developed literature is that in relation with the original principles and so on, but that is something what you can easily check yourself by just taking knowledge of it and start to compare and study the material. There was also quite a big discussion in the time of Blavatsky. She published the Secret Doctrine in 1888. That was 2 volumes, the volumes 1 and 2. And she spoke that there was also a volume 3 and 4. But first published was 1 and 2. And then later on, she say, no, 3 and 4, we keep it on hold. It will not be published yet. That was a lot of discussion. And you can understand, I think, quite easily that you can only go on with teachings if you have digested the previous one. And digested means you understand it, you can live the principles, you have experienced yourself. Yeah? And that is an important thing. So, by holding on 3 and 4 is another way of saying Secret Doctrine 1 and 2 are there, but is not digested completely, and there is not a group of people what can start to study 3 and 4. First, we have to understand 1 and 2 much better. Blavatsky say that 3 and 4 was already there. Yeah, a few persons say that they have seen him. Yeah, and the reason that it was not published, I have explained it to you. Yeah, but there is a big question after her death. After 1891, there are some groups what are publishing what they call volume 3 and 4. Yeah, because after passing away of Blavatsky, they were looking on her office, seeing her desk. There were a lot of articles what was laying there, and they draw the conclusion, okay, this must be volume 3 and 4. Our line of Theosophy don't think that this is true. Maybe it were still very interesting publications, was no point of discussion. And a very famous person in the work of Blavatsky, Boris Sirkov, the editor of the collected writing of Blavatsky, he say very honest. He say, if you look in that type of articles, yeah, you can say that were very important articles, but it was also very clear, even for him, knowing Blavatsky's way of working very well, that he say, for me, these were also articles what needs a second look of Blavatsky to go over it and to correct and so on. I will give you an example of this. If you look to this, and this is a work what is part of the 12 esoteric teachings of Dr. de Perruque. Yeah. If you look a very famous article of Blavatsky found on her desk, The Mystery of Buddha, 80 pages, a very inspiring but a very difficult volume article to read. That same information in that article is by Dr. de Perruque elaborated in part 10 of his 12 parts of esoteric teachings. And I can guarantee you, if you first study esoteric teachings number 10, yeah, the hierarchy of compassion, and you go then to the article of Blavatsky, you understand it much better. Yeah. If you start to study that article without the knowledge of number 10, it is really very hard. I have studied that article with other theosophical people, and I can guarantee you that there are a number of questions in that article what you only can solve if you have knowledge of volume 10 of GDP. What I like to say by this, and that is a very important thing, and that is for our line of Theosophical Organization, TSPL, is it obvious that Dr. Brugge was really coming to explain the secret doctrine much better. So you can see all his publications, and even if you start with the, the fundamentals of Theosophy and so on, these 12 other articles, they are all based on the secret doctrine and working out principles for the secret doctrine much more in detail, exploring it much better. The secret doctrine is quite heavy to understand, but GDP is giving a lot of help and support to understand the secret doctrine much better. So for us, it is obvious that it is possible to find publications after Blavatsky what works out the principle much better, but it is not taking away the responsibility to us. Because you have to study for yourself the additional material, the original material, start to compare, and one principle what should be always, let's say, maintained and should be valid, that is newer explanations of the secret doctrine can never go in contradiction with the original principles. That is the guideline we have. That is the check we have to see, yes, it helps me understanding it better. Yes, it's respect all the principles of the secret doctrine and all the publications of Blavatsky as well. Yeah. So great help, but it is not always the case. We are easily find documentation and publications called Theosophy, what are not in line with the principles of the secret doctrine and so on. Let's give some attention to the other subtitle I have, the magic and the power of working in a group. Yeah, and then also try to speak about the future of Theosophy. To work in a group is a very important thing, but not just a number of members, but that there is a requirement what we need with that. And that requirement is absolutely not new. That is a requirement what was always maintained in all the esoteric traditions in the past 18 million years, but it is very well known in Matthew 18:20, yeah, saying, where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst of them. And the clue is my name. My name is not in the name of Jesus, but in fact in the same atmosphere and thinking of what was teaching doing, yeah? Collaborations, and then, of course, that groups should be really like the fingers of one hand. This is an expression coming from the voice of the silence from Blavatsky. Try to give a clue how that should work, yeah? No contradictions, no evil, no, let's say, competition between each other. We work together and we help each other to get out the best what is possible. So what I called here in my name is what we called working in a Buddhic atmosphere. That means that is the quality what is not so much developed yet in human beings. That is one of the things we have to develop in the future. But we have in fact the power there, latent. We can be activated. And the main thing is that the Buddhic atmosphere is an atmosphere what is based on truth, overviews, uh, things see in one big picture in cooperation with each other, not separate. Separated is typical things what can come up from the intellectual part of our thinking, the monastic part that we start to address all details, but you have to do it from a complete, let's say, cooperation, a complete something what will help to get it. If we work together and if we are able to create groups what work in the Buddhic atmosphere, then we can help each other quite a lot. And in Point Loma tradition, in TSPL, we do that almost with all our activities. We do that for our magazine, we do that for our lectures, we do that for our studies, and so on. We always work in groups and try to build the atmosphere. But the Buddhic atmosphere is key. There is a very nice expression of the master against Synod. Synod complains by the master. Yeah, yesterday evening we had a meeting of the society from what should we do and so on and so on. And he complains that it was going on. Yeah, and there was not coming a clear outcome of that meeting. And then the master said to him, listen, if we have a meeting, and we, he means the Mahatmas, in combination with her chef, the Johan, if we have a meeting, we are ready in 5 or 10 minutes because everybody is coming with a Buddhic point of view on the subject we have to discuss with each other. And the only thing what we have to do is to exchange, bring it together, and make a conclusion. So that is something what we can learn something from. Yeah. So, and that is the challenge. If we start to work in group and we are able to do it on this level, then we are absolutely able to do much more on that on the subject where we are focused on. And that is what we have experienced. We have very good speakers, we have very good article writers, but if we are coming together and we exchange and we think about it, we are always able to make a much better lecture and a much better article out of. So it always helps. Let's have a look for the 2000 years coming. Is there a special responsibility for theosophical organizations? Absolutely. I think that if we are organized well, we should be able to maintain the original principles and carrying them out for the coming period. Yeah. So you can ask yourself, what is the inheritance we have received? Yeah, it's quite a lot. There's a lot of publications. Blavatsky was doing a lot of things. The successors of Blavatsky in our line called William van Geurt, Kesselring de Brugger, they have added on quite a lot about it. Yeah. So there is a huge inheritance. We have to maintain that inheritance. Yeah. So that means that we have to take care that it still is available. And even now, yeah, over just 150 years, we have to sometimes really almost to fight to keep the original alive. Yeah. And then, of course, is what kind of legacy are we leaving behind us? That is the main question, yeah? What do we leave? Original teachings, easy to pick up, of teachings what is already, let's say, polluted here and there and so on. So that is a big challenge, a big responsibility we have to take. If you take that responsibility and like to work it out a little bit further, then I think we can take easily the idea of Plato that is saying ideas rules the world. So that means what lived in our thinking is what we spread. Yeah, the master is quoting Plato in the letters as well, and he say Plato is right. Ideals run the world. So that means what for type of ideals do we leave behind? Yeah. The thinking process of a human is like a receiver and transmitter. I have said it before. Yeah. Overthinking will transmit ideas in our term. That is responsibility, what we have addressed a little bit before. Yeah. And the more pure our receiver is and transmitter, the better we keep the Theosophical principles alive. So as organizations are means and not a goal, that means that we have really to work on maintaining the thinking atmosphere and the atmosphere we are emitting from our organization to other people. Yeah. So that means organizations can lose its needs. If an organization is drifting away from the principles, then you can ask yourself, is that organization still an instrument in the hands of the masters of the words of wisdom and compassion? Yeah, is it in line with the Theosophical movement? Yeah, that maintaining that contact and being a good receiver. You see quite often the master say it a number of times to Trinity, say, we can not come down to your karma, logic, world or atmosphere. You have to raise your thinking to our atmosphere, and there we can have communication and exchange. Yeah. So as long as we are a useful instrument, we will be able to receive and inspire and pass it on to our fellow men. So that means if we are able to maintain this quality, then we can really pass on that information for the future. So, and that is the thing what I like to emphasize very much, is that we need to keep Theosophy alive for the coming. And alive means living, a living thinking, a living thinking atmosphere. There's not dead paper, not a dead book, what is not respected or studied anymore. Now, the thinking thing is this idea. And in that light, having access to original teachings, ideas, is important. Yeah, that starts to tune our receiver. Yeah. So the original publications are still very important, but they are very important because they have to wake up in our thinking the right atmosphere so that we, by thinking what we study, also becoming a better receiver for that information. Yeah. So a good organization is built by good receivers and good transmitters. Yeah. We study and we tune our receiving accordingly. Yeah. Keeping the ideas alive by putting them in practice also as an organization. Yeah. So if we say, okay, we do it for compassion, then we do it for compassion. And like in the TSPL, we don't know pay members or something like that. Everybody is doing it on free will and voluntary. Yeah. Imagine yourself if we are able to build a good organization, an organization what maintain that principle. and is able to emit that principle. What will then, after 2 years from now, the situation, if there is a new messenger coming, yeah, he picks up a complete working organization, yeah, an organization what is an instrument what can use immediately. It is even possible that that organization is so successful still that there is maybe no need for coming a new messenger because the teachings are spread already and will be taking part in the society as well. Well, that last situation, you can ask yourself if that really is the case, because we have seen already that some negative effects have taken place in spreading the original ideas of Theosophy and so on. There is already a big pollution here and there going on. Think about the whole New Age principles, what is quite often based on Theosophical principles, but that's very selfish interpreted. So this is a very important situation for us and a challenge for the members and the organization all together. So this is my lecture. We take 3 minutes for questions and then we can go over to the study. Okay, Astrid, are there questions?
Yeah, we have one question for now. Though I understand organization is better than none, and the society is an example of it within the movement in working for humanity, I question, is there any real need to meet on a personal level, not as much in keeping the teachings pure and spreading them, but especially in keeping the link unbroken by living it?
Yeah, yes. What I try to explain is, let's we split this question a little bit. If you know the teachings, but you don't live them, you don't exercise them, then you are not having developed in your thinking the, let's say, the receiving quality, what is needed to have the information received by the Lords of Wisdom and Compassion, yeah, because that Lord of Wisdom and Compassion is still active, but was always a discussion for other people as well. But from global point of view, we say was active, is active, and will be active. Yeah. So to receive it, and then by receiving it, yeah, that means that you live it and exercise it. You can be a much better, let's say, transmitter, a much better spreading the teaching to your fellow men. Yeah. If it is just a type of, how do you call that, pepper study, a theoretical study, that have, from theosophical point of view, not so much value. Yeah.
Could you say you give more energy to the thought when you live
energy, but what you do is you keep that thoughts also alive. Yeah?
Yeah.
And keep them alive, that means that you're still spreading them all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That was the only question.
Okay. Dankjewel. Thanks. I think it is time to close. Okay. We close with the Kayatri. O thou golden sun of most excellent splendor, illuminate our hearts and fill our minds, so that we, recognizing our oneness with the divinity, which is the heart of the universe, may see the path before our feet and tread it to those distant goals of perfection, stimulated by thine only radiated light.